Towson of the world where they play basketball. They don't play baseball or football or hockey over there, but they all know about the NBA. Everywhere I went in Australia, New Zealand, I saw more Rajon Rondo Celtics jerseys than I did, even sort of Kobe or LeBron stuff. Steve Kyler runs around the world chasing the NBA down there in Florida. He is with Basketball Insiders, one of our defending champions, and you can follow his journey at Steve Kyler NBA. And Steve, who knew we would be coming together here as we enter March and talking about the first place Washington Wizards and making trade deadline deals. Crazy stuff going on, right?
Yeah, but this is kind of what you expect, right? The Wizards found a little bit of a pulse, and they kind of, started to surge a little bit, and they got in the marketplace looking to kind of shore up their roster. Andrew Nicholson wasn't really performing for them. They had signed him to a free agent deal, were able to move him off and get a player that they like, that they're not married to in the long term, that I think can help them a little bit. And we'll see what happens here in the buyout market in the NBA. But they were trying to find a backup point guard, and they may get one now that a couple of players have been released. But the Wizards did what you do when you kind of got a pulse. You got to go for it, right?
Well, and we say that you got to have three players, right? And Wall and Beal, we all know about. Otto Porter has certainly come on, and I know we talked about him a month ago, but the emerging part of his game has continued throughout the course of the year, and they're playing great basketball right now. I mean, I don't know that any of us could have looked back at Thanksgiving and saw this coming, right?
Well, I think if you looked at it, you went, Scotty Brooks, that core, not a lot of dysfunction, should fit. And it didn't. And then you're like, oh, what's wrong? Is it really this Brad Beal, John Wall stuff? Is Scotty Brooks maybe not the coach we thought? It seemed like something was wrong, more so than maybe that it was missing. And, I had talked to somebody within the Wizards, and I'm like, you guys have to kind of do something, right? And he said, no, we have to get right. We have to get right physically. We have to get right spiritually. And that's been the big change is, some of the noise and some of the other stuff went away. And it's not like anything really changed in terms of how Scotty Brooks was playing or the lineups. They got out of their funk and they got out of their way. And coincidentally, at the beginning of the end for Randy Whitman was the exact opposite. The team was really hot coming into the season, and then they get to January and they just fell apart and never recovered. So it's kind of good that this team is starting to find their way at the right time. And like I said, I think this is what you're supposed to do when you've got what they have. You mentioned the three core young guys, but you still have guys like Marcin Gortat and guys like Kelly Oubre that are really productive players that are doing a lot of really good things for them. So, when you talk about the DNA of a team that's ready to play in the playoffs, it's generally more than just one guy being an all-star. It takes a lot of guys, and you're starting to see a lot of those guys, especially the guys the Wizards owe money to, are starting to really live up to it.
Well, the Caps got beaten by the Flyers in the middle of the week, and that didn't make me happy. And I'm over in New Zealand trying to figure stuff out. I'm watching a Springsteen show when it's over. I got online and saw that the Wizards had lost to the Philadelphia 76ers. And then I looked at the 76ers and said, well, they've been better this year than I think anybody thought they were going to be at some point. But still never fun losing to Philadelphia.
Right, especially when, Philly's DNA for the last 5 years has been tank. But, it's a different mindset. That team is a good team. They've got some quality young players. They're starting to believe in themselves and turn the proverbial corner a little bit. The best part of Wizard or of Sixers basketball is going forward. It's not what they are now or maybe even tomorrow. But that team is a better team. And the other part, too, is this is why everybody kind of does this to me. So it's going to be the Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors at the end. Why should we care? Because it's the journey, right? We talk about this all the time, that the journey that teams are on. The Sixers can get you if you don't bring your A game. The Sixers can get you if you don't shoot well. The Sixers can get you if you're not ready to defend. And, that's, I think, one of the reasons why we like the NFL so much is the unpredictability of it. In the NBA, on any given night, you can lose a game, especially if you're on the road or especially if you don't bring effort.
Well, and we talk about this Cleveland Golden State thing, and we're all sort of committed to, well, they'll be there at the end. But who are they going to have to beat in May? And, the Wizards have now jumped into that category. But Toronto was, always one of the teams we said, well, on any given night, and now the injury bug hits them. I don't know how they recover from this, right?
Yeah, Kyle Lowry going to be out probably until, maybe the first week of the playoffs. I mean, it could get all the way down to the wire when you start talking, 4 to 5 weeks to have, loose particles removed from the wrist. So that one's tough. There's no question, especially when Toronto wasn't playing great basketball to begin with. They made a couple of trades. They went out and got Serge Ibaka from the Orlando Magic. They did the trade with the Phoenix Suns to get PJ Tucker, and this was supposed to be load up, shore up the front court, and let's go make a run and get out in front of Boston. Now it's hopefully you don't lose ground in the East. Now, they've got some guys on the bench that they can go to. They've got a young kid at Fred Van Fleet that they like quite a bit. They've got Corey Joseph, who they've used sometimes in the fourth quarter. So they've got guys to go to, but losing an all-star is never easy. And when you think about how well Boston is playing, do you have enough to really gain ground? One of those new guys that just came in are really going to have to play well. So this is tough for the Toronto Raptors. And, the other part of it, too, was Boston made all kinds of noise in terms of they were going to trade for Paul George. They were going to trade for Jimmy Butler, and then they didn't. But they're still winning games and doing it in a real impressive fashion. So when you say who's going to really challenge, it's probably the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference. We'll see what Toronto looks like over the stretch. Because the one thing is everybody thought the LA Clippers were going to fall apart when Chris Paul went down to kind of a similar injury, and they held ground. We'll see what this Toronto Raptor team is made of without Kyle Lowry, who in every way is their leader, both on the floor and emotionally.
Steve Kyler joining us here. You can follow his journey out at Basketball Insiders on the web, as well as at Steve Kyler NBA. That's Kyler, one of our defending champions here. Speaking of the trades, and we talked about, the Wizards making the deal with the Nets. What trades did you love? I mean, is there anything that you think is a real difference maker come April, May, into June? And I don't think anybody is going to be talked out of Golden State and Cleveland at this point, but other teams are moving guys around, and maybe even into the future. As you've pointed out, that the Wizards make a deal that doesn't hurt them or impact them long term, but some other teams made some more deals that said, here's a deal we're making for next year.
Well, I think the for next year and really for the future is the Dallas Mavericks acquiring Nerlens Noel from the Philadelphia 76ers. This is a great move for all involved. Nerlens didn't want to be a Sixer. He wanted a chance to kind of be his own guy, and with the emergence of Joel Embiid, that was never going to happen for him in Philadelphia, and it was time for him to get a contract this summer. So you don't want to play that game of, do you want to match a $90 million deal for a guy that you were going to park on the bench? So, it was about getting something for a guy that had a troubled market value. He had some injuries, and there were just a lot of things that made it hard for Philly to get a lot in return. But for the Mavs, they get a chance to look at him for about 20 games. He could be kind of the bookend part to the Harrison Barnes, Yogi Ferrell future draft pick move. You can see if he fits with a Rick Carlisle, the head coach there, before you have to go and make that $80-90 million commitment. And the bigger part of the $80-90 million commitment is the Mavs got to give that money to somebody. So why not give it to a 22-year-old kid that can be your rebounder, your rim defender, and all of the things that Nerlens is? So that one is a good move for the future. I think the move for now I liked was the deal the Oklahoma City Thunder made with the Chicago Bulls. They get in Taj Gibson, Doug McDermott. These are guys that are really going to help the Thunder, because it's really kind of been the Russell Westbrook show. It's triple-double every night. That's how they win. Maybe you'll get some production out of Victor Oladipo. Maybe you'll get some production out of Steven Adams. And in Doug McDermott, you get a real knockdown shooter from the perimeter. And in Taj Gibson, you get that all-workman-type hustle guy down low that can really augment what a Steven Adams does or an Inez Cantor does. So I like that move quite a bit. Unfortunately for Chicago, that move was probably about the future, in terms of Cameron Payne. But those were the two moves, the Dallas Mavericks getting Nerlens Noel and the Oklahoma City Thunder getting Taj Gibson and Doug McDermott. Those were the big ones. But I would underscore Lou Williams going from the LA Lakers to the Houston Rockets. The rich get richer in terms of instant offense. They've got these two bookend players in Eric Gordon and Lou Williams that can come off the bench and just rain. They're shooting 50-something threes a game. That's how the Houston Rockets think they'll beat the Golden State Warriors.
Well, and the Wizards have their own issues with trying to beat the Golden State Warriors. Nice week for the Wizards to sort of match up here and see where you are. Do you measure yourself against the Warriors when you're playing? Because most teams don't see them a whole lot. And certainly in the Wizards' case, they had that incredible game against Cleveland before they succumbed a couple of weeks ago before I left. Sort of a memorable, legendary game from local standards that you say, well, if you can go out there and play with LeBron, or you can go out there and play with Steph Curry and that group, that then you can start to talk about, well, maybe we can still be playing in early June.
Well, again, I think you always want to measure yourself against the best in the game. I think the other part is when you see what the Warriors are and just how relentless they can come at you, it really forces you to kind of play off your heels a little bit because they're just going to come downhill at you. They're going to get up a lot of threes and they're going to get up a lot of perimeter stuff that you've got to be really on your game for. And I think there's always a learning, especially from coaches. Coaches love to take that game film and show you how you just didn't close out on the screen quick enough. And there are always things that you can learn. And I think for young players, especially Brad Beal, who's had so many injuries, Kelly Oubre, who hasn't experienced that, Otto Porter in terms of what he's doing. It's a very different thing when you're playing against a machine of a team. And that's really what the Warriors are. The Spurs are to a certain extent. The Cavaliers are. You don't know what it's like to guard somebody who is just so physically overwhelming until they're in front of you. And all of those things just add to the confidence. And when you know you can compete, half of winning and losing at the NBA level is confidence that you can win. It's not skill level because the skill level on these guys is really close. It's the other stuff. And playing well against a really good team helps you develop that.
Well, the Wizards got a little dose of Utah. There's a team we don't hear much about or talk much about, but they're also playing some pretty good ball out west.
Yeah, that's it. That's the quietest secret right now. We all get enamored with Russell Westbrook and James Harden and the Golden State Warriors, but very quietly, Utah's getting sneaky. They are. Gordon Hayward was an all-star. They have the big kid, the Stifle Tower in Rudy Gobert, that French kid that's going to put everything at the rim. They've got young guys that are really starting to blossom, an interesting group of older guys in George Hill and Joe Johnson that really produce for them. And they've got a head coach in Quinn Snyder. He's not going to get first place coach of the year votes, but he's going to get more votes than I think most people will say because he's a very good coach that very much like a Greg Popovich or a Mike Budenholzer. I think we can probably throw Scotty Brooks in there now. That
I was going to say, Scotty Brooks is the coach of the year right now, isn't he? Maybe.
Play hard. It's hard. This one's tough. I think it's going to be – I'd be hard-pressed because of how voting goes. And, Nestor, you know this, that when the media gets involved, we kind of fall in love with our guy, and there's not a lot of logic to it sometimes. But the job Mike D'Antoni has done in Houston in terms of embracing what the roster is and isn't and making it flourish, hard to argue with the job he's done. And especially considering, he was kind of the pioneer of this space and pace kind of offense. And, the league has really come around to him and what his career has been. He's going to be the sympathetic vote. He's going to be your Oscar, your Leonardo DiCaprio vote. He's getting in this year. He's getting in.
It's the Westfall, offense all over, but they play a little defense, right? Just chuck it up.
Very little defense. No, the Rockets are a sneaky good defensive team, and the right decision for that front office wasn't just let Mike D'Antoni do it. They brought in Jeff Bzdelik and really kind of tasked him with being the defensive coach. So really, much like in the NFL, you've got Mike D'Antoni teaching offense and Jeff B teaching defense, and each guy really relinquishes to the other. And they've got a really interesting mix of guys defensively, and they've won a lot of games this year with defense in the fourth quarter. But when you see 51 threes in a game more nights than not, you don't think about it that way. You certainly don't think about James Harden that way, but it's a really good coaching job that they've done. It'll be hard to get away from that one. That's probably, and then Brad Stevens. Brad Stevens and the Celtics have been amazing. And then maybe third is Scott Brooks. I think he is deserving as anybody, but those two guys and the job they're doing has been really amazing this season.
Can't say Jeff Bzdelik around here without me saying UMBC and Wes Unseld and the old Bullets, right? You talk about the roots, man. Now you're going back 30 years with me, Kyler.
Yeah, it's been amazing because, the funny thing about the Houston staff is the Houston staff is comprised of a lot of guys that most people around the NBA went, they're done. They're going to coach in college, or they'll be consultants. They're not going to coach again. And here they are, not only coaching but having a lot of success and maybe going to challenge. That Rockets team, when you go shot for shot, I think the Houston Rockets can run with the Golden State Warriors. And they might be a little bit better defensively because this Warriors team is not nearly as good defensively as they've been in the previous years.
Well, all Wizards fans are going to get a little a look this week at Golden State as well as Toronto later on in the week. Always great to have you on, Steve. I appreciate you taking a little time and checking in. We're going to send everybody out to Basketball Insiders to check out your work as well as that on Twitter.
Anytime.
Appreciate you. Steve Kyler, NBA is the way to find him out on Twitter, covering the NBA and all things basketball as the season continues to drone on in a good way, I guess, for the Leones' family. Now with the Capitals in first place, the Wizards in first place, the Brigade beginning play here in a couple weeks. I saw some headlines on that. We're going to look to get Ted on the program. We also have head coach Barry Trotz coming up to Baltimore in a couple weeks to do an event with us. Circle that date on March 20th, Monday the 20th. We're going to be bringing head coach Trotz up to talk some hockey. So, hey, Wizards making it interesting for us, as are the Terps, who are falling, and they haven't been able to get up yet. We'll see how it goes before the Big Ten tournament next week. I am back from Australia, back from New Zealand, back from the boss and all the fun that I had, and ready to cover Combine, ready to watch some Orioles baseball and get you ready with the Caps and the Terps and the Wizards, amongst other things as well. You can find me out on the internet anywhere it's served, in our Facebook Live, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. You can email me anytime, anywhere, nasty@WNST.net. I am a very available individual out on Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, anywhere the internet is served. We are there for you, including the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault. For anything you miss here, you can go there and get all of that good stuff up on our website and download that TuneIn Radio app and listen live anytime you want, where you want, when you want, how you want. It is WNST upon your request. Our morning newspaper hits your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That's powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. It's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life there. And last but never least, any breaking news, I don't know if Matt Elam's dealing weed or whatever, you'll get the text first. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis Kalatzis will be here on Thursday, driving you home from 3 until 5 and getting you ready for a weekend of sports activity and the final weekend of the regular college basketball season as the Terps take on Michigan State. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.